Maryland football can be a bowl team next year.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Maryland football can absolutely get back to a bowl game next year. We got kind of used to making bowl games under Mike Oxley before last year. Obviously, last year's season was really disappointing with what we did in terms of our record, how many wins we got, not getting to a bowl game. There was many disappointing performances out of last year's team. And I honestly, when you look back at last year's team, I thought it's honestly a lot better than probably what we thought it was going to be. I think there was a couple things that held us back from last year's team that didn't allow us to win more games. But when you look at it on paper, the team really wasn't as bad as maybe we thought it was in the moment. We took some really bad losses throughout the season. Only one Big Ten win, to be honest. And honestly, that wasn't good enough. It was a pretty bad year for Maryland football. Our one Big Ten win came against USC, which was a really big win, one that we absolutely wanted to get. But when you lose to Rutgers and when you lose to Penn State by 40 and when you lose to Iowa by 16 and when you lose to Indiana by 14 and Northwestern by 27 and Minnesota by 25, you start to look at the Maryland team and say, we got to be better than that because we want to get back to a bowl game. We want to get back to a better place than that. And the team overall didn't add up. Mike Oxley just didn't coach well. I talked about it yesterday. Mike Oxley just didn't have a great year. We got out-schemed almost every single game. Anytime you're going to lose to Iowa by 16 and you're going to lose to Minnesota by 25 points and Rutgers by 14 in an early Michigan State loss, you got out-schemed early on in the year. Because a lot of those games, honestly, Maryland was favored in. Maryland was honestly the better team in terms of Vegas. And I really trust Vegas and those lines that they put out. They do a really good job usually with those lines. And those are pretty accurate. It's a pretty accurate representation about what in terms of the game, how the game should go, and all those different things. And I think that Maryland football just had a terrible year last year, and it's really that simple. But my point is we can get back to a bowl game this year. We can get back to a bowl. We can get back to the land in which we were in the last 3 years before last year under Mike Oxley. People forget, before last year, Mike Oxley had made 3 straight bowl games for the Terps. It felt like we were in a really solid bowl every single year. If you guys remember, we were in the Duke's Mayo Bowl where we beat a ranked NC State team who was 23rd in the country at the time. Before that, we were in the Pinstripe Bowl where we beat Virginia Tech, crushed a Virginia Tech team in that game. We went to 3 straight bowl games, and that was really cool under Mike Oxley, the ability to be able to do that, the ability to be able to win bowl games. And, of course, the Music City Bowl game with Auburn as well, another big win against an SEC opponent. And I think all Maryland fans want to get back to that. That's the goal right now. To me, the goal isn't to win a national championship. It isn't to win the Big Ten. When I talk from a realistic standpoint, when I talk about this team and not trying to just get out of this world with the comparisons or trying to predict anything crazy, and I'm not giving you some insanely hot take, I think the goal's a bowl game. And that's fair for a Maryland team. That's where our talent lies. That's where our coaching staff lies. That's where the players lie. That's the type of talent that we've accumulated is we want to win a bowl game. I think that's kind of what the Terps want to do, and that's kind of where we want to be at. Nothing less, nothing more. I think Maryland wants to be able to get to a bowl game. Obviously, if you can do more than that, that's awesome. Like if you can make a really like in terms of it doesn't technically get better than making a bowl game, but you guys know what I mean. In terms of a better record where you get to a 10-win season and you get to a better bowl game and all these different things. But to me, the goal every single year for Maryland football is to get to a bowl game. That's just the way it is. And you only need 6 wins to get it done. And I think this Maryland team is going to have every opportunity to be able to get there. They're going to have every opportunity to make a bowl game. And I'm still not convinced this year that this year's team is better than last year's team. I'm not convinced. I would probably tell you right now, strictly on paper, not sure how it actually is going to play out. And I'm still kind of unsure how some of the Maryland transfers, the guys that transferred in looked, like Cam Rice on the defensive line, like Jaleel Farouk, some of these other guys in the secondary. There's a lot on this Maryland team that we're still trying to figure out how guys look, what types of player guys are. But I think it's going to show a lot for the Terps, and I'm unsure kind of who's going to end up standing out, who's going to end up looking good for Maryland football. I just don't know yet. But purely on paper, last year, I probably would have told you that the Maryland team was better, to be honest. And so you might be surprised by this prediction, but I do think this team has the upside. I do think this team has the talent, and I do think this team has the schedule to be able to make a bowl game. We'll start with the schedule. You get 3 wins. You should, as this Maryland team should get 3 wins off the bat. You're halfway there. You should be halfway there after the first 3 games of the season. FAU, Northern Illinois, and Towson. It's pretty cut and dry. You should be halfway there after those first 3 games. It shouldn't be too much more complicated than that. It should be pretty simple. The Terps win the first 3 games. You never know what can happen. FAU could be decent. Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame last year. Towson, you just don't know. But to me, those first 3 games are all at home. Those are 3 games you should start 3-0. And you're halfway there already. And the thing about it, and I've talked about it, is Maryland's schedule next year is so favorable. You miss out on all the big dogs besides Michigan. And Michigan's probably the number 1 big dog that you want to play right now. I don't know how good Michigan's going to be. We know they have that freshman quarterback. That's really exciting. I guess he'll end up starting is my guess. But I don't think Michigan is anything insane. Like, that's the best team you play this year, probably. Other than that, you don't play – every game feels like a 50-50. Obviously, it's not exactly that, but when you look at Maryland's schedule, they all feel like 50-50 games. And if you win the first 3 games, you should be able to get 3 more. That's just the way it is. And this is the bare minimum. I'm not even saying like Maryland football should be a 6-win team. I just think it should be rather reasonable for the Terps to be able to get to 6 wins. You play Wisconsin next. You get a shot at Billy Edwards. You're used to Billy Edwards. You know how to plan for Billy Edwards. You know how to go about game planning against Billy Edwards. You know what defenses to run against Billy Edwards. You know what he's good at. You know what he's bad at. That should be a really, even though that's a tough road game for on the road against Wisconsin, that should be a winnable game against a Wisconsin team that you might have an advantage over. And then you play Washington at home. That's winnable. You play Nebraska at home. That's winnable. You play UCLA on the road. That's winnable. You play Indiana at home. That's winnable. You play Rutgers on the road. That's winnable. You play Illinois on the road. That's winnable. You play Michigan at home. Maybe that's the one you say Michigan takes. And then you play Michigan State on the road. There's no reason that out of the last 9 games, the Terps can't find a couple of wins. They should be able to find a couple of wins. They should be able to find 3 more wins and probably more than that. So I think it's, when you look purely in a schedule standpoint, Maryland should be able to get to a bowl. They just should. When you just look at the schedule, when you look at everything, Maryland should be able to get to a bowl. It shouldn't be too complicated. It shouldn't be too hard. It shouldn't be too difficult. Obviously, winning games in the Big Ten, I'm not going to act like it's easy. But when you play 9 games or 11 out of your 12 games all year is winnable, where the last couple of years, it hasn't been like that. It hasn't been like that at all. It's like, oh, you play Penn State, you basically can cross that off. Oh, you play the number 1 Oregon team in the country. Oh, basically can cross that off. Oh, you play Indiana, they're the 8th best team in the country. Oh, you probably can cross that off. But this year, you don't really have any of those. You could argue Michigan. And then I think another reason why I think we have a strong a strong chance at making bowl game is Michael Oxley. I think he's learned from last year. I think he learned from last year some things that he should do, some things that he shouldn't do, some things that he's got to do differently in terms of rotation, in terms of who to play, in terms of going with the better guy instead of experience, and some of these different things in terms of the scheme and trying to figure out the Maryland offensive and defensive line, which is clearly put a ton into because a lot of our transfers are coming in on the defensive line. A lot of them are coming in on the offensive line. Loxley's put in a lot of time figuring out what went wrong last year. Why could we only win one Big Ten game? And there's plenty of other games outside of Penn State, outside of Oregon, where we just got blown out. Northwestern, Minnesota, Michigan State early on, which wasn't a blowout, but still a loss. And so I think the Terps have been trying to figure out, or Mike Loxley has started to figure out what went wrong last year. How can we get back to being an 8-7 win type of team and get us over that hump to a bowl game? And I think it'll really allow Maryland to benefit. And I think the Terps are going to be looking like a team that potentially could be in a bowl. And I definitely think that that's something that could end up happening and that could be exciting for the Terps. So we'll see exactly what ends up happening. I do think that is definitely a possibility and something that can come into play for Maryland. But we'll see what ends up actually happening. But I do think the bowl should definitely be a thing this year for the Terps. I think we got to get out of this. You can't have another year with this schedule. You're just not going to get a chance like this. You wish this was Maryland's best team in years because you would look at this be like, is Maryland a sneaky playoff contender? Not saying that could happen, but it's similar to what happened with Indiana last year. They just didn't play anyone. It's not like they were just better. Like we saw in the college football playoff. Not like they were just better than everyone. They just didn't play anyone. So I do think it is interesting. Justyn Martin. Can he win us games if he's quarterback one? What's the case with that? What do I think about Justyn Martin? We'll talk about that next. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. And with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have way more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are going over and under? You can take that on FanDuel, whether you want to take the Knicks or the Pacers tonight, or if you want to take Tyrese Halliburton to record a triple-double, you can do that over on FanDuel. There's so many different things you can do on FanDuel. Or if you want to talk MLB and you want to take the Yankees to win or the Red Sox to win, or if you're a Baltimore fan and you want to take the Orioles to win, or you take the Ravens to win next year in the Super Bowl. There's so many different things. Or NHL fans as well, the Oilers to win the Cup, whatever the case is, you guys can do that over on FanDuel. It's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So let's talk about Justyn Martin. Justyn Martin, Maryland's quarterback, why I'm concerned about him starting for Maryland next year and why I lean towards Malik Washington. But I also want to talk about Justyn Martin as a player in terms of what happens if he starts for Maryland football next year. What is in the case for the Terps if he's a starter? How many games can we win? So we'll start there. I do think we can win with Justyn Martin. I do, especially with our schedule. But it's tough, and I don't want to move on to Malik Washington too quick here. But I just think with Maryland's current, how this year is probably going to go and how we're looking at the future, I do lean towards Malik still. I do want to say this. I think we can win games with Justyn Martin. He didn't look awesome in the Maryland spring game. He just looked okay. He did some decent things. He looked okay last in the spring game. I do think we can win with him. I think he's talented enough. At 6'4", 220, he's the biggest quarterback on our roster. I mean, Malik Washington's a pretty big guy, but Justyn Martin's a tank. Like, that's some Cam Newton, Josh Allen type of size. Maybe not quite as heavy, but with 6'4", 220, like, that's a big dude. I do think we can win games this year, especially with how the schedule goes. But I don't know if we're going to be able to play the brand of football that we want to play with Justyn Martin. And my concern is he hasn't played yet at UCLA. And UCLA hasn't been that great. I know they had a decent quarterback in front of him, but he didn't take any attempts in 2023. I guess he redshirted, and then in 2024, he got one start, and it went okay. It convinced that at this point in his career, I don't know why it hasn't came together, is basically what I'm saying. I think it should have came together now. I think he should have probably have figured it out and put the pieces together. He's a high-level recruit, big-time four-star. You look at a kid like that and you're like, he should be playing somewhere, and he hasn't been. And so it does concern me, but I do think he has a big enough arm. He's a big arm. He can run. I just don't know on a play-to-play basis if he's going to be accurate enough, if he's going to make the right reads enough, if he's going to be the type of player that I want. Like, he reminds me a lot of Billy Edwards, to be completely honest. He reminds me a lot of Billy Edwards from last year, where it's like he might start the season off really decently and Mike Locks can scheme up some really good stuff for him and whatever the case is. But then after a little bit, it kind of goes downhill and stuff isn't going to look as good. Guys aren't going to be as open. Whatever the case is, it reminds me a lot of Billy Edwards. Similar size guys, big athletes, which aren't natural quarterbacks. They're not natural quarterbacks. Obviously, they've put in a lot of work at it, but there's a difference between guys that are just natural throwers of the football. Like, let's take Tua Tagovailoa or Talia, either of the Tagovailoa brothers. Those guys aren't 6'4", 220 and have cannons, but they're just natural throwers of the football, and it comes out super clean and rhythmic and nice. Justyn Martin to me isn't that, and I think Malik Washington's our closest thing to having a quarterback that is smooth in the pocket, but also throws the ball well, but also is a natural thrower of the football, but it's also 6'3", but is also a really good athlete and gets me really excited. And yeah, he's a freshman, but I saw Malik Washington outplay Justyn Martin in the same circumstance in the spring game. So I do want to say I think Justyn Martin can play for us. I think he's plenty good enough to play. I just think when I think about the future timeline of Maryland and Maryland this year and getting ready for the future of Maryland football and the excitement from the fans and all those different things, I just think Malik Washington. And what do I mean by that? I think Maryland's kind of a year away. And you don't really want to start getting into this, especially in college football. Like the NFL, it's a little bit different. Like being a year away is okay. You're not going to be good all the time. Teams are going to have to rebuild. Like Patriots win a bunch of Super Bowls, and all of a sudden they have to regroup and start it over. And now last year they drafted Drake May, and now they're probably saying, we might not, we're going to be better than we were last year, but we're probably still a year away. College sports, you want to reload. The best teams reload. You don't want to say you're a year away because all of a sudden the transfer portal hits, the NIL money, guys aren't getting enough, guys leave. Your roster never looks as good as you think it is going to be next year. But I do want to say we do feel like a team that's young and talented. And I just want to see Malik Washington out there sooner rather than later because we don't want to mess around with him leaving or going somewhere else. A team will pay him a lot of money to go play quarterback. They will. They just will. That's just the way it will go down. And so I don't want to mess around with Malik. I want him to play early, and I also want to get him ready. The first couple of games in the season, like those are perfect. Get him ready for when we play Michigan later on the season, or when we go play Washington, or when we play Rutgers and some of these teams. And I'm just not huge on the Justyn Martin thing. I don't think he's awesome, and I know you can start. I'm fine with him starting the season and then transitioning to Malik, but I just haven't seen enough from him to say he's not more than just kind of a specimen at the quarterback position. I still just think he has a lot to put together. I think he can do it, and I'm interested to see how he looks. And I'm not at practice every day, but I lean towards Malik starting. So we'll see how it ends up going. I think Malik starting could really help the Terps. We'll see what ends up happening, but we'll see how everything comes into fruition. But I like Justyn Martin. It's not that I don't like him as a kid, but we'll see. Let's talk Maryland basketball. Let's talk about guard play for next year. Who are the guys that are probably going to lead our team? Is there a star in that bunch who can break out from the guards? We'll talk about that next. All right, let's get into it. Let's get right into it. Maryland basketball guard play. So it is a really interesting guard team for Maryland basketball. And I kind of want to talk about it and talk about my 2 cents on the Maryland basketball guard play next year. So I do think there's a couple guys on this team that can end up being really good. I think what a lot of people think is going to happen is a lot of people think Miles Rice is going to be the starter along with Isaiah Watts. But I'm talking more about the 1, the 2. So I'm not really talking about Solomon Washington or George Turkson. I'm talking more about the 1, the 2 position. I think those 2 guys are projected to be the starters. I think Miles Rice and Isaiah Watts, I think one of those 2 guys is going to end up being really good. I think Miles Rice I love his game, the Indiana guard. I thought he was really solid for Indiana last year. I thought he could have had a bigger role, and he got outshined a bit by some guys that were good players, but Indiana didn't put it together last year. But I think Miles Rice is a guy that could put it together, could end up actually being really solid for us, average like 13 points a game. That's where I can see him doing that. And the same exact thing with Isaiah Watts. I can see him doing a similar type of thing. So we'll see exactly who ends up being kind of the lead guard. It could be similar to last year where Gillespie and Rodney Rice, like I don't think neither one of them is that, but I do think they're both the step below that where they're really solid, can give us a little bit. I really like Miles Rice's pull-up game, his ability to create his own shot. Isaiah Watts is explosive, can get to the rim, can shoot it a little bit too. But I think underneath them is the most interesting. David Coit, the former Kansas guard, I think there's a world where he ends up starting too. With his experience, with his energy, I think he's going to be a fan favorite. I just think he's interesting. He's played a lot of basketball. He's undersized. Is the one thing you're concerned about defensively. I do like him off the bench in terms of just he's going to come and give us a ton of energy and do a lot that way. David Coit is. But I do think there's a world in which he ends up playing a good amount as well and ends up could be a starter. Maybe it's David Coit at the 1, Miles Rice at the 2. I could see that as well. And then I also think Andre Mills, a transfer from Texas A&M, is it crazy to say he might end up being the best guard on the team? I'm confused about Andre Mills. Obviously, he redshirted last year, but clearly Buzz Williams brought him in for a reason. Clearly, he's a pretty good player. I want to see how he looks. We know he's a 4-star out of high school, highly recruited, top 100 recruit, redshirted last year. So we'll see exactly. I think it's not crazy to say Andre Mills could be the best guard on the team. We might look at him and be like, Buzz might be like, yeah, he's taking that spot. That's why he was a 4-star. Yeah, he's shown growth. We've seen a lot out of him. I don't even think that's crazy. I don't even think that's insane at all. I could see that end up happening as well. I think Marquise Passmore is also interesting. I don't know exactly what you guys want to call him. I feel like I think of him as more of a 2, but that is a guard. At the website I'm looking at has him more listed as a 3, but I think he's more of a guard. Marquise, he's also a guy you could look at and be like, he's our best guard. And then obviously Darius Adams, a 5-star. We're going to be looking at him as a potential guy that ends up being a really good player for Maryland basketball. So I think the guard play is really interesting. I think it's really deep. I don't know who gets cut out of the rotation. I think there's a lot of different bodies. I do think it'll be really interesting for the Terps. So we'll see what ends up happening. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.